Hey YouTube family, welcome back to my channel. I'm just getting around to reviewing Married to Medicine Season 8 Episode 19 Part 3 of the reunion. And it opens up with the fellows on stage. It picked up from the last show. And Andy is asking about what's the tea with Scott and the life coach situation. And Scott said he made it up and his wife understood after the conversation that he had made it up. But here's the thing. He has no type of credibility with his wife, Contessa. That is why she was busy questioning him about when he got the life coach and how long and etc. etc. Because he has fallen into a pattern of lying and she knows it. And so everything he does and says, she has to really question him to see if there's any truth to what he's saying. And that's a shame because a husband and wife, part of a marriage is trust. And if you don't have trust in your marriage or in a relationship, let's say, you don't have any type of relationship or marriage. That is, to me, the foundation. You have to trust each other before you can build anything. Love, a family, anything else. It's part of the building block of a relationship. And that has completely eroded because Scott seems to be, from the outside looking in, he's an habitual liar. You know, he's going to lie about something so simple and so petty. If he did not have a life coach, why say that you have a life coach? So he stated his frame of mind was not for his wife to have one up on him. And that is just silly. Because if you can't even the score every time, she's going to have one up on you, or you're going to have one up on her at some juncture in the relationship. I think both of them, Contessa as well as Scott, are confusing their friends. They're saying one thing at one point, and the next juncture they're saying something else. You know, he is saying that she blindsided him, announced all this on TV, and she's saying that he knew about it. So it's really conflicting. Whatever she says, he knows about. And then he says he didn't know about. And the friends are co-signing what Contessa says because she's telling them everything. And the fellows are saying that it's very confusing what both of them are putting out there. Because what you put out there, because people don't know their business. They're the ones who are putting it out. And so when they give all this information to their friends are drawing a conclusion and drawing opinions based on what they put out. And if they are not putting out factual information, then the conclusion is skewed. It's not factual. And this is what's been going on. So everybody is confused at this point. The only thing that everyone can agree on is that both of them need professional counseling. And so Heavenly said it seemed confusing to she was talking to Tessa backstage, that it seemed confusing to Scott when she came out on stage and said, you know, that's it, she's had it. Heavenly's telling Contessa that it seems as though she was calling the marriage in right then and there, that she is done. And that was what was confusing to Scott. And this is why they need counseling, because before they got out on stage, they should have been in agreement on what he and she would say for the viewing public. They're not in agreement with anything. Apparently they did not discuss what Contessa would utter out of her mouth and vice versa. So they haven't got a clue about what each other is about at this point. The marriage needs to be rebuilt because the foundation has been broken, it has been torn apart, and it's gone. And so Contessa then tells Heavenly they've got a timeline. And because nobody knew about this timeline, just Contessa and her husband, Heavenly said, if you don't mind me asking, what is your timeline? And she said, her birthday next year. So you're talking about a whole year. That's your timeline for giving up on the marriage, and yet you filed for separation and put the house up for sale. So it is so confusing, the steps that they're taking, that it's either you're in or you're out. If you are working on the marriage and your timeline is next year, then you don't put a house up for sale and you do not file for separation, because you are still working on bettering your relationship. And so this is why everyone is so confused, because their process on working out their differences is confusing. And this is why they need professional counseling. The friends are one thing, they can put in their 2 cents, but they need someone who has no vested interest in their marriage in terms of friendship, who can look at their marriage through a different lens and not feel as though they'll be picking sides. Because if Dr. Jackie gives them counseling, I don't know if she's giving them counseling, but let's say if she gives them counseling, then Scott is going to feel, oh, she's going to be on Contessa's side and vice versa. So there's so much information that both of them are going to give to her, because they're going to try to make themselves look in the best light. However, if it was someone on the outside, then they can honestly open up, admit their faults, because that's what Scott is doing right now. He's not admitting his faults. And Contessa wants the ladies to agree with her. If you don't agree with her, you're not her friend. So you guys see where I'm going with this. And to tell you the truth, I don't think Contessa would have said anything in terms of them separating if Quad did not come out and say that indeed they were separated. Because she was holding back when Andy said, what's the tea? What's the story with the divorce? And she teared up, but her lips were sealed. And then Quad jumped in and said, with your permission, if you don't mind. And she said, it's okay. And then Quad said, yes, indeed, Contessa did file for separation. If Quad did not step in, Contessa would have kept her mouth shut. Because, she mitches moans and groans to the women, filed for separation. She's still there. And it's just the status quo, business as usual. She's not moving towards a separation. When you file a separation, your bags are packed pretty much. But she's still there and giving herself a timeline of next year, her birthday next year. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? It tells me that she has no intention of giving up on her marriage. So all this filing for separation and crying and carrying on is smoking guns. He's still going to be there. She's going to put up with a mess. Mitch moan and groan. And they're going to be in the same situation next year. I'm not saying you shouldn't fight for your marriage. All I'm saying is you should they, in this case, should set boundaries and come up with a game plan for if boundaries are not met or they're broken, then there's got to be consequences. Next up, we see Heavenly stating that Alf Sharpton had called her. He wanted to spearhead what they were doing and kind of consolidate what he was doing and she was doing and kind of get a call to action for Black Lives Matter in Atlanta. And then they all were participants in, whether it was on the front line of the COVID or the front line of Black Lives Matter, because let's face it, during the COVID, the height of the COVID pandemic, it was the last administration that, we were really fighting through and standing up for our rights to be citizens in the U.S. and going through all the racial injustices that was taking place with George Floyd and a lot of other young black men and women being killed at the hands of the police across the United States. And so they did their part in terms of rallying to the cause of Black Lives Matter where they are. But remember, this was happening all over the U.S. This is just a little snip of the rallying call for everyone to rise up, not only at that time, but currently, because it still continues. We're not hearing as much about police brutality. That does not mean it's not occurring, because the police has a long history of brutalizing black and brown men and women. And so there's no doubt that it continues. However, it's covert now. It's not out in the open as much. But I'm sure they're well aware that citizens have cameras. We're armed with cameras, if not guns. We're armed with cameras, and we can take a video and put it on the internet to let it go viral for everyone to see what they're doing. So they're very, very mindful of that. And in terms of COVID, the doctors, they really put themselves on the front line to catch the disease. So you have to hand it to them, And kudos to every doctor, nurse, healthcare workers who have been out there on the front line with this COVID pandemic. We have to applaud them because it was not easy for them. Remember, a lot of them had families at home and were worried that they would go back home and if they pick up anything and spread it. And yet they still had to work to make a living. So it was damn if you do, damn if you don't. And you do have to survive. You do have bills to pay. And so they did a little recap on that with the doctors out there in the field. But although the healthcare workers are spreading the doctrine and the word that it's okay to get the vaccine is relatively safe, although a small percentage of people do come down with some type of side effect, and some of it is severe. The percentage is very low. When you're talking maybe 1% and you have millions of people taking the vaccine and they're okay. So you have the conspiracy theorists, people who believe the government is doing an experiment on us, or there's a computer chip in the virus, or, all these other nuances that are out there that are causing people not to take the vaccine. And then I've heard some black people in my community say that they can't trust the government because the government has experimented on us before, and who's to say that remotely they can activate whatever they're putting into us and it doesn't affect any other group, just black folks. So there are all kinds of theories out there. But so I guess it's up to the individual. They know what's best for them. But for me, I would say you have to err on the side of caution. If it's a pandemic out there and you've got families to protect, then you might want to reconsider not getting the vaccine, especially if you have to go with the public. So pretty much what I'm gathering as the husbands are talking, and they are, well, Scott and Contessa, my conclusion is they are at a point where they have given up, because one of the husbands says he heard that the way they were talking to each other, that pretty much they're going to do them. You know, I'm going to do me type of thing. Cecil said that's what he heard. And it reminded him of him and his wife when they were going through their struggles with their marriage. And so he mentioned it to Andy because he said if they are going to do the me thing, then the marriage is not going to work. Because in a marriage, it's not about me, it's about us. And so if you're going to say, well, I'm going to do me, and the next person say, I'm going to go do me too, then that's a recipe for a sure divorce. If you want a divorce, then do your own thing, and it will happen. Also, I think what's going on with Scott and Contessa is that they not only have pretty much given up. Contessa says she's working on her marriage and she's fighting for it, but your words are powerful. And so when you talk to your husband any old way, and she talks to Scott any old way, and he responds any old type of way, the words have meaning and they are powerful. They may not be punching on each other, but those words are like punches, because it hits you in the heart, it hits you in your soul, and it's hurtful. Those words make you cry. And so just looking at the dynamic on one of the footage that I saw, they cannot move past the hurt and pain from things they have said to each other. When you are lying, being deceitful, and not giving a damn, then it's easy to give up and walk away. Irrespectful of the other person's feeling, this is how they act towards each other at times. And I don't know if it's maybe part of the pressure at work, because both of them are working as doctors and there's a lot of pressure in that field. And maybe when they come home, the slightest little thing is aggravating. And so when you are aggravated, you kind of give up. And you throw punches, no holds bar. And getting back to the Black Lives Matter, because they got back to the protesting of Black Lives Matter there in Georgia, and then they said that it seems they were closer to getting some answers in terms of equality for black people. And because there were it was such a mixed group of people. One of the husbands said it felt as though they were getting closer to equality. But I can tell you, because the other races came out, the other nationalities, I should say, came out, does not mean black people are any closer to equality. We will be closer to equality when federally the rules, the laws, the amendments that governs this country are written equally for black people. It's written down, because we can't take anybody's word for it. It has to be in writing, and it has to be a federal law. And they didn't feel as though black people were in it all by themselves this time around, which is true, because when Dr. King was marching and all the other civil rights leaders in the 50s and the 60s, it felt as though we were in it alone. I mean, there were a handful of white folks that came out and marched with us. But this time around, the climate of the country, there are a lot of whites who marched in Black Lives Matter. especially the young whites, because that's a different generation from when I grew up, and through civil rights, it's a totally different generation. These kids are rallying to the cause for right and wrong. It's not about your skin color with them. It's, are you on the right side of justice? That's it for them. Now, you find the bigots and the KKK and those types of people are the ones who are not educated by and large. They're blue-collar workers, and a lot of them are steeped in their ignorance and refuse to get out of their ignorance. Another thing to remember why a lot of young whites came out for Black Lives Matter and George Floyd is because they now have black children to raise. A lot of these young white women hooked up with young black men and have children. So now they have to be worried about their black children being slaughtered in the streets. And so when you have biracial children and they're considered black because 1%, that's the rule, and you're black. 1% black blood and you're black. So when you have those children to protect, you are going to come out and join rallies for the cause of your children. So really they have no other choice but to stand on the front line with black folks and demand justice. And this is why throughout the protesting with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter throughout the country, it really was like a 40-60 split of racial diversity throughout the country. And that we had not seen before. So Dr. Karen was next up for, to state his opinion. And he said there are like 10 different stories. So, and nobody knows which one is the truth. And to be quite honest, like Contessa said, if you tell the truth all the time, there'll be no question about you telling the truth. Whenever you open up your mouth, that's pretty much what she said. I'm just paraphrasing. But I hope Scott learned a lesson from this particular little exercise, that because he has lied so many times that his wife doesn't believe anything that comes out his mouth. There's I think there's a song out that you're lying when your mouth is moving. That's pretty much with Scott. But the minute he opens his mouth, his wife thinks he's lying because he's so used to not telling the truth. And that's what Dr. Karen was saying, that it's so much confusion, and there are like 10 different stories, and you get to, it's like a book, you turn the page and there's a new scenario and a new path to every page, and it's confusing because you never get to the end and know exactly what happened throughout the middle of the story, because there's so many nuances and turns. There's no consistency, in other words. What I like is the fact that Contessa is able to express herself properly without being interrupted by Scott, because I think that's the dynamic when they are alone in their own home, that she expresses herself and maybe he shuts down and walk out and go to the room or walk outside or whatever, and vice versa. But she's fully expressing herself for him to know where she's coming from. And when Andy said, I want you guys to leave here good, and she says, well, that's not going to happen today. I mean, that's an honest response, because she knows their marriage is in such disrepair, but it cannot be fixed overnight. She cannot be sitting on Andy's show and go back home with Scott and everything is all right. I mean, that's not very realistic. And I'm glad she was able to tell Andy that's not going to happen overnight. I think these husbands have to bear in mind the statistics involved in a reality show when it comes to marriage. Most marriages don't make it when the reality show is done. And that's what all these husbands have to bear in mind, especially Scott, because right now he's on the hot seat and his marriage is the marriage that is in peril. When he was getting his facial, I mean, to him, it probably was innocent, and his wife took it to mean that he was either flirting with a woman or it was his woman. In any event, as far as he's concerned, it was very, very innocent, getting a facial. But it's not the fact that he got the facial. It's the action after he got the facial. He posted it. He bragged about it. He showed the picture to the fellas and was making all kinds of slight and snippet remarks. You know how guys do. Oh, she's this, she's this. Some guys say she's fine. I don't know if he said it, but I know some guys do make remarks like that. If someone is good looking who is taking care of them, they will tell their buddies, oh man, she is fine, finer than wine, that type of thing. But the way he was carrying on about this facial that he received from this woman, you would think that he wanted more out of that little dynamic. You would think he wanted a relationship with this woman if he's not having one already. And this is what I was referring to when I said the husbands have to be mindful that whatever they do when the cameras is rolling, their wives will see. And that can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I mean, they've been shooting this show how long now? So they should know better. There's certain things, I don't care how much the show is paying you. If you want your marriage to survive, you cannot say or do any and everything on television. Period. Sometimes people in a marriage are so busy doing X, Y, and Z, raising the children, working, finding other things to do like Little League and basketball and PTA and everything else except investing in their marriage. So you can be invested in your marriage financially but be emotionally absent. I dare say maybe 1 in 10 couples go on dates when they are married. The things that you do to keep and get your husband and wife are the same things you have to do when you marry them. If you were bringing flowers and cooking special meals on special days, be pre-married, before you got married, you got to do the same thing after you get married in order to keep that person, because that's what they're used to. And the minute you deviate from doing that, you switch up the relationship, you switch upon them, and then they start looking at you sideways. This is not the same person I married. So in the case of Scott and Contessa, maybe they ought to set aside some days to go on a date. And for some people that makes the world a difference. If you can put aside a Friday, a Saturday, a Sunday, and do something just for each other. Just the two of you. Not the kids, nobody else involved. I know for a fact that for most people it works. My dear sister who passed away went on a date with her husband every Friday. They would stay in a hotel, they would get a babysitter for the kids, stay in a hotel, do the lunch and some bonding time, And it strengthened their marriage, and they were stronger for it. And sometimes that's what you need to get away from the entire family, kids and all, and just the two of you. Like if you just met and are doing your first date. Scott was on the hot seat this time around, but some of the husbands have been there, done that. Quad is divorced. She's been there. Some people's marriage did not make it, and some people are stronger for it, like Dr. Simone and Dr. Jackie. Sometimes in order to grow and heal, you have to be put through the fire. And I think that's what Contessa and Scott is going through right now. And if they should come out on the other end intact, they're going to have a very, very strong marriage, because this is the ring of fire that they're going through. And no one said marriage is going to be easy. As a matter of fact, it's hard work for a lot of people trying to stay married. But you know, I was looking for the warmth between Scott and Contessa. You know, sometimes the marriage is over, but there's still that attraction and that warm feeling that you can give your wife a hug in public and, you know, say, you know, we're going to get through it, honey. You know, a little peck on the cheek or whatever. I saw no warmth between them at all. So Shady Andy brought up the question that Quad is single, alone, no children, and he stated Heavenly said it, putting her on the hot seat. And Heavenly said, did I say it? He said, yes, it's on tape. And this is the thing. It's nice being married and with children, but it doesn't mean it's the end of your world if you don't have children and not married. Life goes on. A lot of people are happier by themselves, being alone and single and easy to mingle. So that shade that Andy was trying to show and to throw, and Heavenly throwing shade, it's water off Quad's back, because she's got enough money to live a very nice life. If she wanted a husband, I'm sure she can get one. If she wanted children, she can do adoption. There are a whole bunch of children out there that needs a mommy. And so she have a choice, and she has chosen to stay in the situation that she is in and to keep her situation the way it is. It is by choice. It's not because she can't have a husband or children. Your biological children, a lot of times, are not as close as even the ones you adopt. So you can't go by, okay, it's not her biological child, so it's not really her kid. No, you can't go by that and say that she cannot, have children. Because, like I said before, there are a lot of children out there that are up for adoption. Look at Oprah. Oprah went all the way to Africa and have a whole school of girls there that calls her mommy and mother and mom. You know, she's surrogate mom to all those girls. And Quad can do the same thing. Or she can adopt one or two in her home and rear them as her children. So that kind of low shade that Heavenly likes to throw in today's society, it's not warranted, and it means nothing. Next, we see a gathering of the ladies and another doctor's wife who referred to Heavenly's husband as Daddy. Heavenly's husband, Dr. Damon, Daddy. I mean, what possessed her to use that particular word? And the only thing I can think of is maybe Heavenly refer to her husband as daddy. But that's just between her and her husband. That's not for anybody to use that nickname for him. It's like if I call my husband Pookie Bear, I don't want anybody else to call him Pookie Bear. That's my own little nickname for him. So I get where Heavenly was coming from. Does she know the meaning of daddy? It has two meanings. When you call someone daddy, that's a father, father figure, or that's your dad. But in other words, when a grown woman, on the other hand, I should say, when a grown woman call a grown man daddy, that is your man, your sugar daddy. And so I was with Heavenly, correct that immediately. So Heavenly said, you don't call my husband daddy. He's Dr. Damon to you. And then Becky with the blonde hair said, I'm sorry, Dr. Damon. Put her in her place. And if Becky with the blonde hair was thinking of going after Heavenly's husband, I think at that point she was thinking twice, because Heavenly would beat her ass, her ass, if she ever tried it. But I have to hand it with Becky with the blonde hair. She came right back and said, sorry, darling, Dr. Damon daddy. She was not scared of Heavenly, and she let her know, okay, you want me to call him Dr. Damon? I'll call him Dr. Damon, but I'm still going to put daddy in there. So at this point, Messy Andy got around to all the shade that was thrown last season. And it started out with Heavenly and Becky with the blonde hair, but then the second person was Jackie. So Jackie completely redid her walk-in closet and hang a big old chandelier in the middle there. And the ladies saw it, and they were commenting that Curtis ain't had a thing to do with this here. Jackie is the one who did all this without the permission probably of Curtis. Not permission, but a conversation. And Shady Heavenly said, well, it's Jackie's money, and I believe she did exactly what she wanted to do. And of course, she spoke before she could even think, because I don't think she meant to say it's Jackie's money. Because when you are in a marriage, it's not your money or my money, but it's our money. And Nala throwing her low shade at Heavenly, that anybody could be a dentist. She could have done that. Well, until you have gone through school and studied to be a dentist, you don't know if you're capable of doing it. Because saying it and doing it is completely two different things. So when people work hard and go through school and accomplish something in life, I'm always in wonderment of people who come along and did not even try to do half the things that person have done, and love to throw shade that, oh, I could have done that. Oh, that's nothing. That job is easy. I could go through school and be a dentist too. Yeah, well, go try it and see if you can accomplish that goal and that task. But I noticed later on the show, Nala was reeling it back. She was reeling that back. And she said, well, girl, I was throwing that low shade. I was only trying to get back at you. And Heavenly just let it go. But I'm sure she could have said a lot more to put her in her place. And the ladies asked Anala's mother if she was a virgin when she married. And the mother said she didn't know. And, it was a gay old time. Everybody was laughing. And we saw where Heavenly said if Anala is hanging with Toya, she don't think that she was a virgin when she got married. I mean, what a thing to say about Toya. Is Toya that loose or a woman of the world that you think she was not a virgin when she got married? I mean, the insinuation is that she, messes around a lot, and it's she got a loose, what. And I don't think that was a nice thing for Heavenly to say. She probably should have stricken that off the record, because, I mean, those are fighting words for some people. So Quad said she doesn't agree with Michelle Obama. They go low, we go high. She don't believe in that line, because as far as she's concerned, I'm paraphrasing, these are not her words. As far as she's concerned, they go low, we going lower. They go low, we going lower, period. That's what she was really saying. Because if you're going to come and cuss at me, I got some choice words for you too. And if you hit me, you better be damn sure I'm down for good. Because when I get up, your ass is getting beat to a pulp. That's all she was saying. So it was a shade fest last season, and Andy is recapping what he captured on tape. And then Toya, she made a statement about Heavenly. She said if she practiced more, she would actually be employed. Now that was really below the belt, because Heavenly got her own practice, and her office was only closed because of COVID. For her to say that, she really wasn't thinking. She even had to say in the confessional, did I say that? And Andy went on another question about Heavenly making the point that Quad doesn't have anyone to love her. And of course, Heavenly denied it, because they already have her down as the biggest liar among all the ladies. That was another question. And so she denied she said it. And then she said, was it on tape? And Andy said, yes, it was on tape. It was on the record. And my thing is this. No one has to love you as long as you love yourself. You should be your biggest fan in terms of loving yourself. You don't have to wait for a mate or anybody else to love you. You can do that all by yourself. There are certain things you can do by yourself. Loving yourself is one of those things. A lot of people wait around for a man to come along, or a woman. Oh, they're so sad and crying all the time. Nobody loves me. Who the hell cares who loves you? Just love yourself. So everybody began to laugh because they saw the footage with Funky Dineva in the car and Heavenly making that comment. And after they played the footage, you saw Quad's face. Okay, bitch, I'm going to get you later. That was the face that, she gave. So the other wife who had called Heavenly's husband Daddy, her husband is a doctor also. And Heavenly was explaining that she was going to say something else to her, but refrained herself. So Heavenly started to hit below the belt with Becky with the blonde hair. And she said she knows that before they got married, he was married to another woman and she slept with him. And to bring that out, that would have been going too far. And I started to laugh. I said, oh boy, Heavenly is shady as hell. She just put that woman's business on Front Street. So Messy Andy asked the next question of who was the better dancer of the group, and they all kind of agreed. It was Contessa. And then I'm paraphrasing now. He asked a question similar to if they were Destiny's Child, the group. Who would be Beyonce, who would be Michelle, and who would be Kelly? So they had a little laughter over who would be Beyonce, Kelly, Michelle, and LaToya. And Toya's turn to go at it, because apparently Toya said something about Quad, and Quad let her know in no uncertain terms. I'm paraphrasing you all. Quad said, don't ever come for me unless I send for you. So Quad said to Toya, pay respect to the queen. Don't ever try me, because I know exactly how you got yours. And she couldn't say a thing right away. She caught her so much off guard that I think she was afraid that she was going to spill the tea and put her business on Front Street. So she didn't say nothing about that. She just like diverted a little bit and said, well, I was only saying. Apparently the feud between them, between Toya and Quad, started concerning Quad's credit line limit or credit line. I'm paraphrasing again. Quad just told her, point, period, check my statements. With over $2 million in the bank has no problem with me as an investor. And Quad went on to say, I became wealthy on my own. Nobody helped me. So B, pay homage to the queen and don't ever come for me unless I send for you. At that point, Andy had to break it up because they were arguing back and forth. So they're kind of wrapping up the interview now. And Andy said, do you ladies plan on meeting outside of the show, and what are your hopes for the friendships? And Toya said, well, before they used to meet and enjoy each other's companies, and almost every weekend Heavenly used to have a party and they all used to show up. But since the pandemic and since all the falling out between the friendships, they hardly meet up anymore, and she would like to see everybody get back to that place. And she said, we can meet over at Dr. Jackie now that she's got a new home. And she said, even my kids can come. And that's when Dr. Jackie just rolled her eyes. That kind of rolled eye to mean, not on your life are your kids going to come over and tear my house up. And that's why Toya qualified her statement and said, well, my kids are more disciplined now. So as Toya was explaining that her kids are better now, they're more mannered, well-mannered. You should have seen the ladies' eyes. All of them are kind of like cringing, moving their eyes from side to side, and Dr. Jackie is trying to, how cool and calm she is. She's still maintaining her composure, but her face looked like if she was saying, not on your life would I invite your children over to my place to tear my brand new stuff up. But it's a shame that you cannot go certain places because of your children, because people are fearful that they're going to tear their place up. How many people do we know like that? Because apparently Toya put her foot right in it and commented about Quad's credit line. And Quad said, don't ever come for me unless I send for you. I'm paraphrasing. And Quad said, because I know how you got to where you are. I know where the skeletons are buried, so don't ever come for me. So last up was Contessa, when Andy said, I hope you're going away better than you came because you were going through a very difficult time in your marriage. And she said, it's okay, it's normal. Can you imagine thinking that this is normal? What she is going through is normal? I guess it's normal for her because she's been going through it so long, but it's time that she jump off that train before it crashes, and she crashes with it. This is not normal. It is what she is used to and have gotten used to, but it is not normal. And so what she was saying was that she's just happy now that everybody sees everything for what it is, and she's not to be blamed. And everybody's now supporting her marriage to him. And maybe when he sees that, he can maybe try harder and they both can get some counseling. I have news for her. This man already knows exactly what she just said. He knows that everybody is cheering for their marriage to work. And he doesn't want to go into counseling. So everything she's saying is what everyone is aware of. But for her to sit there and say it's normal, that tells me something about her. That she has accepted the situation the way it is. She don't like it, but she has accepted it. I think Amelia held her own this season. This is her first season, and she was thrown into the lioness den with all these women and all the shade. And she held her own. I mean, a couple of times she blew a fuse, but she survived. She she is on the reunion show. You know, some people on other shows they don't even show up because that's how bad the experience is. They don't even show up to the reunion. But she showed up. So I think we should be seeing her next season. Holler back at me, people, with your comments. If you are in agreement with some of the things I said, I would love to hear your opinion on some of the things that I've put out there and how you guys feel. Drop it down in the comment section. So let's review quickly the dresses, the beautiful dresses the ladies had on. We liked the most and what we did not like at all. Anila had a pink chiffon dress. The dress was short, and then she had the train in the back and a lot of fluff in the front of the boost area. I thought the dress, there was nothing wrong with the dress, but I did not like the headband that she had on. I didn't think that was right for that particular dress because she had a young, fresh looking dress on, you know, like a young person would wear. But then the headdress was like for a sari, so it didn't go together. Contessa's dress was nice. I like especially the right shoulder, how the appliques that were there looked like feathers from afar. But that right split, I didn't particularly care for because it was a U split instead of a slit straight up. So I thought a slit would have looked better with this dress. Next up is Heavenly's dress. And I thought it was a nice dress. I liked the train behind it and the off the shoulder, the way she, the shoulder part of the dress was hanging down her arm a little bit. But I thought she only needed to do one side, not both sides. And her hair and makeup was on point. I loved the hair, the swoop on the one side. I loved everything about Dr. Jackie's dress. The color was just right for her. I loved the one-sided swoop of the hair. And she had the cutout on the elbows and the glit and glamour of this dress. When you closely looked at it, you saw the rhinestones. Well, not rhinestones, they were beads, but beautifully embroidered onto the dress. And her makeup wasn't overwhelming. Everything was just right. I think she had the best look for me because the other dresses I have seen done before on other people. But this dress was truly, to me, very simple, classic, and classy. And that described Dr. Jackie perfectly. Classy, elegant, and simple. I love this dress on Quad. The color was just right for her skin. I think the only thing I didn't like about this dress was the green on the pink. I thought a color that complemented the pink would have been better. Like if she had like a deep purple or black or blue, one of those colors. But the green just didn't look quite right. But it was a nice dress. Next up is Dr. Simone, and I thought the color of this dress was exquisite, that lavender silk. And she wore it well because she has a nice figure to carry it. The hair I liked. I would not have I wasn't too crazy about the hair. I think I would have done an updo with this particular dress, but the beading was exquisite. And it could have been a little longer. I think I would have loved a train on this dress. Toya's dress was giving me the same type of feeling and vibe that Anella's dress was giving me. Anella's dress was whimsical, kind of fairy princess, and Toya's dress was giving me the same vibe. It was a pretty dress, but I've seen it before on so many other people. And I thought the same as I did with Quad's dress, the applique could have been a different color. But it was pretty, and I loved what she had going on the hair. She kind of reminded me of Kenya Moore, because remember Kenya Moore, her dress had the applique and then it went up the shoulder and up the neck. And that was so original. And with this particular look that Toya has, she has the some type of applique in her hair, and it looked quite nice. Family, please do not forget to subscribe to my channel. You guys are viewing because it's over 10,000 views in 1 month, but the subscription is not going up. That's telling me that nobody's subscribing. They're just looking at my videos and when they're done, they're done. But before you look at it or after, please hit the subscribe button on the video, please, so I can bring you new content. And I'm sure you guys have some commentaries yourself on the video and what went down with the reunion part 3. So drop it down in the comment section so we can maybe discuss it a little further. Up next is a recaption, a quick takeaway on the video. So my takeaway on Married to Medicine Season 8 Episode 19 Reunion Part 3 is that all of these ladies have problems with each other. I don't think no 3 are seeing eye to eye. There is kind of like they're polarized, one is going, 2 is going in that direction and 3 are in the opposite direction. And they're not cohesive, they're not a unit. They are only there for the show. That's what I'm seeing. They're there to make their little coin, like if they need it. And after they make their money on the show, when they leave and go through the door, they jump in their cars and go their separate ways. I don't think, like Quad said, that they're friends outside of the show. They're just putting on an act of being friends. That's what I see. And it's a shame that you have to stoop to such a level to make some money in today's society. But I know one thing, they better be very, very clear on one thing, that it's not a good track record for married couples to get on reality TV. Go ask Tamar. YouTube family, I am out. That is my commentary from Married to Medicine Season 8 Episode 19 Reunion Part 3.